to You Can Do It Too, a podcast highlighting regular folks who followed their dreams and made it happen. I'm Joan Hutchinson, your restaurant maven. I've been described as a risk taker, though I never thought of myself that way. My mom always told me I could do or be whatever I wanted as long as I set my mind to it, and I believed her. I ran a successful catering company that led to owning and operating a top 10 Orange County restaurant and catering venue, prior to earning a bachelor's degree in business management and marketing. You know what I learned by going to school after all of that? You don't need a degree to accomplish your dreams. You need drive, passion, and a belief in yourself. You also need some caring folks who support you and believe in you. I didn't need a formula to tell me how to properly staff for a week. I needed common sense and a deep care for creating outstanding dining experiences for my guests. I've been coaching and consulting with salespeople and small business owners for the last few years and blogging with business advice. I just wanted to do more, to reach more of you. I decided to talk with folks I admire, who kick ass at what they do, to show you that you can do it too. All right. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today on You Can Do It Too. I am Joan Hutchinson, your restaurant maven. Today, I am speaking with Nicole Phillips, a wife, mom, PH athlete, HR guru, and career cancer survivor. Her journey has been a unique one, filled with many challenges and guided by love. From starting her career in hospitality to moving herself to Texas in 2007 to graduating college at 38 and transitioning into a career in HR. She says, there's one thing I know for certain: hard work pays off. Aside from her professional journey, her personal growth has been a constant evolution as well. From her father becoming paralyzed following an accident to her niece being diagnosed with a terminal illness at the age of 3, to being diagnosed herself with cancer a few weeks after her 40th birthday. She says this: the last 8 years have been hard, and yet I am constantly reminded there is love all around. Oh my gosh, Nicole, show's over. You just said all there is to say, right? Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today.
Of course, it's a pleasure, Joan. So good to see you.
It is terrific to see you too. I invited you here because you've been an inspiration to me for a multitude of reasons, and we have so much to talk about. First off, you interviewed me and hired me after I graduated from college at a late age. I was in my mid-40s. You were much younger, and you were an amazing leader. I learned a lot from you. And one of the things I remembered most was you would write us personal notes just to thank us for doing a good job. You know, it was something little, but it meant a lot. Where did you learn that?
So before I learned to do it, I think that I should share with you why I started doing it. So I was very early in my career. I had my first big grown-up job. I was managing a few restaurants at a casino, and I got a beep on my pager, just aging myself a little bit there. And they said to go to the general manager's office. And I thought, oh my gosh, why in the world would my boss's boss need to talk to me? So I had all this panic, and I was going through all these scenarios as I was walking up to his office, and I sit down in front of him, and he says, hey, you have done an outstanding job this past year. And because you've worked so hard, we would like to award you with this bonus check. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I could get a bonus check. And for somebody who had $100 to their name, I was really excited. And I was opening up the envelope, and I open it up and I find a check that was for $1,000 at the time. And I just started to cry. I was so overwhelmed with thankfulness, because for me, I hadn't done anything but just done my job. So I was thanking him, and he stopped me and he said, this moment right now, Nicole, how you feel, the thankfulness that you feel, keep this throughout all of your career. Always remain thankful, and you will always have an advantage.
Wow. Wow. That is very cool.
Right? I was just like, what? Like, I didn't even really know what that meant, right? But I
Uh-huh.
thought about that a lot throughout the beginning of my career. And I still reflect on that moment now in my career. And where the cards came in is I started thinking, how do I really truly express my thankfulness to others in a way that's impactful? So when I thought about people being celebrated and cared for and loved, I thought about my Aunt Mary actually, and she is somebody that I always nickname Hallmark because she has a greeting card for every occasion. I do mean every occasion. Like even a vasectomy, she's like, happy, successful vasectomy. Here's the best greeting card. You're celebrated. And she just never missed the opportunity to make somebody feel cared for, celebrated, and important. So when I thought about how I wanted to thank others, I took a page out of my Aunt Mary's book and I started hoarding greeting cards. And I still have a box of greeting cards at my desk to this day.
Well, so do I. Thanks for that.
Oh,
I really do.
I love that.
It really, really made a difference. I mean, we were working in a casino, which the crew was bigger than several of the towns where I live now. That's how many people were there. But you were able to make us all feel like we were listened to. That's such an important skill. And when you gave us those cards, it really made a difference. But we, really making us feel listened to. I think it's such an important skill for a leader, don't you think?
I do. So quite honestly, I don't even think listening is important. I think it's critical. I think that listening is critical to having successful relationships. It's critical to be a great leader. It's critical to have a sustainable business. And when I think about listening, right, it is so much more difficult than people think. It's a skill. Mm-hmm. It requires a lot of work. It requires you to create a space where people feel welcome to bring themselves and encouraged to share their ideas, empowered to disagree with something that's being said. It requires you to be able to shut down all those distractions, right, and truly be able to be present in the moment. And that's something that's been really challenging throughout the years as technology's advanced, and some of the ways that I have tried to create habits to be a great listener as society progresses and technology progresses. Mm-hmm. I shut down those distractions. I turn off my phone and I put it in a different area, or I shut down my computer, or I say, hey, let's take a walk, just you and I, so that we're able to connect together. Yeah. And then what do you do once somebody shares with you? Right? Because if you're just an ear to bend, they're likely not going to come back. Mm-hmm. So being able to show that you care and that you appreciate what they're bringing to you, maybe that results in a different action, or maybe that just results in acknowledgement, right? And then you revisit a conversation that you had. I learned very early on I didn't know a whole lot. And if I wasn't willing to listen to those who were around me, if they were, somebody who was working on my team, or somebody who was a mentor of mine or a peer of mine, a customer, if I wasn't truly there to listen and to lean in and be curious and ask questions, I was never going to be able to be successful. So I really appreciate that you recognize that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what you just said, like asking questions and just being there as a sounding board, sometimes that's all somebody needs. And you're right, it takes so much work. It's such an important skill. They need to have a class in college on it,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we have so much more to talk about, but we need to take a break to hear from our sponsors. So we will be right back. All right. Welcome back to You Can Do It Too. Today I am talking with Nicole Phillips. She has so much to share. So I think, of course, I'm giving myself some credit here, but I could swear I remember talking to you about going into HR, and that's just what you're doing. I don't know if I did. I know that I was thinking about going into HR and trying when we were together at the casino. What made you decide to make that change from operations? Because you were one of the head guys in the F&B in that hotel casino, and now you have moved into HR.
Right. So I did. I made a big career change about 6 years ago. And when I think about why I moved to HR, I think about why did I even start off in the restaurant industry anyway? So it was a really great question and allowed me to do some reflecting. And what I reflected on is, I had really just ended up in a restaurant by chance. I was getting my associate's degree. One of my buddies said, hey, they're, opening this big casino. Why don't you go apply? I did. I got hired to work as a cashier in a cage. That essentially is somebody who takes your casino money and gives you real money. Yeah. So I leave the interview. They call me. They say, hey, why don't you work in our sports bar instead? I was like, absolutely not. I have no desire to work in a restaurant. They're like, hey, here's the deal. We'll train you. And if you make $4 an hour in tips, you're going to make what you make as a cashier, but you're going to make more than that. And I'm like, okay, we'll take more money.
Sold.
I'm done. I'm sold. So I start working in this restaurant. It's a year later, and I am getting ready to graduate with my associate's degree. And my boss is like, hey, we're hiring for a supervisor. I think you should apply. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm getting ready to graduate with my associate's degree. I'm going to university to go to get my bachelor's, and working in a restaurant's not in my future. He says, there's a long time between now and fall semester. The pay is really well, and you can save your money. So when you go to school, you'll be ahead. Okay, sold. So as they say, the rest is history. Like, I'm working in restaurants. I'm managing restaurants, bars, nightclubs for 15 years. In casinos, out of casinos, I literally had the time of my life. Like, I was running the best party in town every single night of the week. I had great musicians. I had celebrities in my nightclubs. Like, it was just a lot of fun. And I met thousands of, people from all over the world who have such incredible, inspirational stories, who taught me a whole lot about teamwork, who taught me much more than ever I could have imagined. But from learning a margarita recipe to frying the perfect fry, they taught me about life. And incredible career in food and beverage. And then 7 years ago, I got a phone call very similarly from a mentor. I respect it. And the phone call sounded like, hey, have you ever thought about a career in HR? And at that time, I was a mom of a toddler and an infant. I had been working 60, 80 hours a week for 15 years. I had worked 6-day work weeks, 7-day work weeks. I had worked stretches of 60 plus days without any day off.
And when you had your younger one, you even came in like early after maternity leave.
Yes, you remember that.
You were crazy. You were crazy.
Yes. Yep. I came back 2 weeks early from my maternity leave with my youngest because the business needed me. And that was just how I worked. So when I got that phone call, I was like, let's talk. Yeah. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And that, quite honestly, is what started that conversation. It was a mentor who saw something in me, right? And it was just the right timing. And I had a mentor who told me once that everything in my career would happen at the right time. Like, if you get passed up for a promotion, it's just not the right time. It doesn't mean you give up. Then you just try something new, or you try again, right?
Sure.
So that's what started that transition. And I knew I had to be all in. If anybody was ever, going to take this, person who comes from running a restaurant, what do they know about being an HR professional? And there was a lot of work for me to do to be able to skill up and educate myself. And that started this quest for learning. And I, joined a local organization and started attending meetings regularly. I joined a course for the business school for the University of Missouri St. Louis. I then rolled right into getting my bachelor's degree with Lindenwood University and spent 2 years obtaining that, and then graduated at 38 in 2019 with my
Congratulations on that. And was that required for that HR position? Did they tell you you had to have it?
No, so it definitely wasn't required. And
Mm-hmm.
I had I had been promoted into an HR role at that time. For me, it was more about my commitment to
Mm-hmm.
making that career change and being able to show that I was willing to put in the work to be
Mm-hmm.
able to pivot my career from operations to HR and educate myself and be all in. So, yeah, definitely not required, but it was my approach to the transition.
Sure. And I mean, when you're in HR, you do, if you're going to be a manager in HR, you do have to have certifications and things like that, right? So that's coming up for you.
Yes, yep, sure. Yes, right now I'm actually in a program working towards obtaining my senior level certification. So, and it's like anything else, right? Any other professions, when you are willing to put in hard work and continue your education and continue your growth as a professional, that is giving you skills that you don't currently have. So it's just making you that much better at what you
Mm-hmm.
do. And it sets you up for success in life, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I'm working towards my next certification now.
Very, very exciting. I know, I tend to be a perpetual learner. I even though I did not have my degree when I was younger, I took classes, and I was always taking classes. I think my mom did that. My mother was a teacher, and so for them, they always had to take more classes, and she was always going to school. So I think I was just doing the same thing. Oh, that looks interesting. I need to learn about that, entrepreneurial classes and different, I did the same thing. So it makes sense. I mean, it matters to you. So why not go for it? And in HR, there's a lot of law, so that's
Yes,
it's good to
and
have
they're
that
ever
schooling.
changing.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about pH because I am sure that many of our listeners don't even know what pH is. Now, your niece was diagnosed with juvenile pulmonary hypertension, which is what pH is short for. But when that happened, you didn't passively sit by. You started Fun Run for Hay. So tell us about that. And then now you call yourself a PH athlete. So explain that, please.
Yeah. So in 2015, my niece Haley was diagnosed with a rare case of a rare disease. She was diagnosed with complete AV canal defect and pulmonary hypertension, which is 2 holes in your heart and high blood pressure in your lungs. And her diagnosis was terminal. And at the time of her diagnosis, they had shared with us that if she was responsive to the treatment, that she potentially could have a prognosis of 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah. So when you think about that, when you think about being 3 years old and being told that if you're responsive to treatment, that you possibly could live to be 13 years old, it's absolutely devastating. There's
Right.
nothing that can prepare anybody to hear that about their daughter, their granddaughter, their niece, their friends. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So we immediately started aggressive treatment, and 6 months after her initial treatment, I will never forget, I was standing in the cardiac ICU, and I was actually on the outside of her room where her medical team had all came in to deliver this news that that she had not been responsive to the treatment at that time. And following that really hard news, the medical team shared with us that there was no other case that was like Haley's case. So there was no textbook to go and turn to know what the next step would be for treatment.
Wow.
So they asked for some time so they could network worldwide to be able to see if they could find somebody who maybe had a similar case where they could learn or take away some practices from. And I remember thinking, how unfair is this? How is it that there's no guidance? That at that time there was 0 FDA approved medications for pediatric patients. Pulmonary hypertension was something that most medical professionals had never seen or dealt with in their career, or even known of in some cases.
Right.
And it felt like we had no control in anything. So I remember I went home and I just started researching, what can I do to help? And what can I do so that I can feel like I have something to be in control of?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I found an organization that had a program called O2 Breathe. And the first year, I actually signed up to run a marathon while fundraising and sharing Haley's story throughout my training. And we blew through our fundraising goal. We had a $1,000 goal, and we blew through and had $5,000 raised at the end of these 6 months. And even beyond the funds, which are so critical and important to be able to do work in the community, what I was truly blown away with was how many people were rallying around us who were so selflessly giving their time, their talent, anything that they could feel like they could contributing to sharing our story, raising awareness, and just being there as a community. So at the heels of that first year, I thought, what else could I be doing to help spread this cause, right? Spread this awareness. And out of that came Fun Walk for Hay. So for 4 years, we hosted a 1 mile fun walk where we had like local sport mascots and food vendors, and the fire department would come and the ambulance district would show up, and we have hundreds of people show up every year, and it was just a lot of fun and really a celebration not only for Haley but for the PH community at large. And
so your niece was able to be there when you were doing those fun runs. Awesome.
Yeah. So Haley was there with us for the first 2 fun runs, and ahead of COVID, our world came crashing down a few weeks earlier when Haley passed away in February of 2020.
I'm so sorry about that.
So
but you sure did a heck of a job getting the word out.
Yeah, we were so blessed to have people. I mean, I had people reaching out to me from all over the world, people in Australia and Africa and Switzerland, who were like, my wife has pulmonary hypertension. My daughter has pulmonary hypertension. And a cousin of mine has pulmonary hypertension. Can you help us? Is there any information you can share with us? Wow. It is such a rare disease, and it can impact anybody at any time of their life, any gender, any, background. It doesn't have a specific target demographic. And so you find this commonality within the community. And currently, so like all things in life, right, there's a season. So with Fun Walk for Hay, after Haley passed away, it really was so emotional for us to continue. And it put me in a place where I started thinking, what else can I be doing? How else can I support pulmonary hypertension? I said from the start, this is a lifelong commitment. It hasn't ended. So that brought me to nonprofit called Team Phenomenal Hope, which does some amazing work in the pulmonary hypertension community. They support unmet needs. And if you've ever been diagnosed with a critical illness, you know your needs far surpass medical. And they are just an incredible group of loving and caring people. And I joined their athlete program as a Let Me Be Your Lung partner with my good friend Kathleen. And we run in memory of Haley. So I started a campaign called 7 Runs for Hay. Last year, I took that idea to my sister and said, hey, what if I ran 7 5Ks? And each 5K will be with a charity that has personally touched us in our journey, but ultimately we will be fundraising for Team Phenomenal Hope. That way we can spread our love, spread our awareness, and still continue to fundraise for PH. So that's what we're doing again this year. And my first run is on April 8th with Make-A-Wish.
Woo. Okay. So in order for people to donate to help sponsor you, do they go to Team Phenomenal Hope? Do you have your own page? How do people do that?
Yep. So you can visit the Team Phenomenal Hope Team PH page. I do have a page that's featured on there for 7 Runs for Hay that is dedicated to our efforts. And then we also have a Facebook page for 7 Runs for Hay as well.
Okay, perfect. So we'll put those web addresses so people can check them out in our show notes. It's perfect. Very cool that you've been so creative and so giving of your time and your energy, and you got to train for all that stuff. So I guess it helps you stay in shape, huh?
It does.
So then you dealt with your niece and you're doing all these fundraisings, and then last year a new challenge. So you were diagnosed with breast cancer right after your first mammogram. Wow, that's scary. So you started to post about it on social media. What made you decide to go public with that?
Well, ultimately, I decided that I needed to go public and go public quickly because I was turning 40 and I know a lot of people who are turning 40. So my cancer journey is not unique. It was a complete shock and surprise. And I, go to get my physical every year in February. Did it last year. Just did a couple weeks ago too this year, and always went just to get my Amazon gift card because I'm a total nerd and I love wellness points and I love a good wellness program. So my doctor recommended like, hey, you should get your mammogram. We'll go ahead and schedule it for you so you don't have to worry about it. Your birthday's coming up. And when the 6 weeks passed between my appointment and between my mammogram, I had a lot of life going on. We were buying and selling a home. The housing market was super hot. At one point we owned 2 homes for like 3.5 weeks. We were, everything was about timing. We were living in and out of both homes, sleeping on air mattresses. It was crazy. And we had 2 vacations sprinkled in there at some point. So they called me and they're like, hey, we're calling you to register you for your mammogram. And my initial response was, oh no, I need to reschedule. I have a lot going on. And the coordinator said, I understand life's busy, but we will take care of everything on this phone call. So you'll just have to show up and it's a 15-minute appointment. I promise you it's easy. So I was like, okay, well, I was already on the phone. I'm like, all right, let's just do it then.
Good salesperson.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. So it comes around and sure enough, she was absolutely right. It was 5 minutes from my house. The appointment's 15 minutes. I know some women have uncomfortable time with it and it hurts. Not for me. It was just really easy peasy. So I didn't think anything of it. And it was the next day that I got a notification that I needed to have an additional image. And I had to read it 3 times because I could not believe it, because I always have nothing but you're in great health. We'll see you again next year.
Right.
So I thought, oh gosh, this is weird. The next day the doctor calls, no big deal. This happens a lot. We'll schedule you Friday so you can have peace of mind going into the weekend. Friday comes around, I go in for this additional imaging. They come in and they say, we want to do an ultrasound. I go in for the ultrasound. The ultrasound tech goes to leave, and she walks right back in before she closes the door and says, I want to check your lymph nodes. That took the breath out of me, because I knew at that point that she wouldn't have wanted to check my lymph nodes if she didn't think that I had cancer.
Right.
And I started to get scared, and I was crying, and I just started thinking about Haley and how brave she was throughout all of her medical treatments. And I just really leaned on that to get me through that moment. And I left immediately from there to another room where they told me I needed to get a biopsy. And not only that I needed to get a biopsy, but they wanted to do it on Monday, the next available day to do that.
Wow.
So that was the longest weekend of my life.
Gosh.
And then I had several more of those throughout my journey as they continued to work on the diagnosis. But in 7 days, I went from having no symptoms, no real family history, no concern at all, having my first mammogram, to having additional imaging, to having an ultrasound, to having a biopsy, and 3 days later being diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
I still don't believe it. It feels like
wow.
It feels like, the past year's just been a whirlwind. I ultimately decided to have a partial mastectomy, and that was 4 weeks after my biopsy. And the biggest driver of sharing my story is because at the time of my biopsy, my tumor was 1 centimeter. And at the time of the removal, it was 1.5 centimeters.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
That is fast growth.
Yeah. And, honestly, scientifically, they mark it as a moderately growing tumor. Because my tumor wasn't aggressive, it wasn't spreading, thankfully. But it was growing fast and steadily. And I think about that often, because had that coordinator not pushed back on me and said, hey, this is easy, let's get you in. Had my doctor not said, hey, you're going to turn 40, let's just get this on the schedule so you don't have to think about it. Had those conversations not taken place and I'd waited, I honestly don't even know what stage I would have been in October or November of this past year. Right. And I would have had a much different story. So I had the partial mastectomy, a lumpectomy. I did 20 rounds of radiation. I am on daily hormone therapy for the next 10 years. I go to 3 oncologists. I'm in care of 3 oncologists still, and I go back to the cancer center every 3 months to get a long list of tests and surveillance to keep an eye on any potential recurrence. So although my tumor is gone, I very much am reminded every day that I am still on this cancer journey, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard.
Well, and I get it. You feel like it's so important that you tell people so that they know they better get themselves checked, right? I mean, you are trying to put it out there. You've got to take care of yourself, right? Oh my goodness. And for someone who is so physically active as you are, and so generally in good health, that is scary, very scary. I would guess, I have a niece who had a rare form of cancer. And while she was going through her treatment, she also was on social media talking her way through it. And I feel like that maybe helped her get through it a little bit. Do you feel like that was the same for you?
Yeah, I think it took a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability to put myself out there. But for me, anytime I got a message from somebody who, said, hey, I've been putting this off for 3 years, but now I have it scheduled, or, hey, I'm going to turn 40 in a couple of months and I already called my doctor to have it scheduled as well. That has been super impactful and just helped me, encourage me to continue to tell my story. And of course, I think the beautiful thing about social media, a lot of people, focus a lot on the negative aspects of it. And certainly there are, reasons to be concerned. But, I always have had a big network, and it's because I've had the pleasure of working in so many amazing places and meeting so many, amazing folks throughout my life. And these media platforms have given me a really great opportunity to continue to have this circle of folks that I don't know that I would still have a connection with if this didn't exist, right? So being able to have folks reach out to you and share their encouragement and cheer you on, it definitely makes a difference, because although when you're in a cancer center, you see how many people have cancer. I would always say that to my husband. I never knew so many people had cancer until I got cancer, and I'm sitting in these, waiting rooms, and there's 40 of us in here that are packed in. It can still feel very isolating. And so the more support you have around you, it's just easier to get through those times. Yeah.
Wow. So you've made it through it, and now they're telling you that you're on at least a 10-year journey, that they're going to just keep an eye on you and make sure that you're okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. They said that there is a 5-year plan after the 10-year plan, but they didn't want to overwhelm me. So we'll learn more about that plan later on. But it's
well, it's so I'm sure that it's good for you, that it makes you, that you feel good that you're making an impact, but you are making an impact. And to me, it's a selfless thing that you're doing, talking about it, because, a lot of people are just scared and won't talk about it. So they feel like they're all alone. And the fact that you were sharing helps them feel like they're not alone. They're not the only ones going through that. I mean, you weren't like, hey, guess what? I have cancer. You were being honest, and you were saying, today, I just found out I have to take hormones for 10 years, I mean, you could see that it was upsetting to you, but then I know I'm not alone when I'm going through that, So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing so much of what you've done. And you're really good at sharing and getting the word out. And you've done a heck of a job with pulmonary hypertension and sharing your niece's story and your just your quest to make sure that everybody knows about it is inspiring to me, and I'm sure to everyone that sees your posts. So just, wow, thank you for that. And I'm very excited for you and for your journey. And I wish you so much continued good health and much joy and more success. As if you haven't been successful in your life, you have been. And not that you haven't worked hard, because you have. And it's obvious, like we talked about, the amount of hours that you worked, and you deserve to work a 9-to-5 job, even though I know you would stay longer if you had to. But it's a pleasure knowing you, Nicole. So thank you.
Likewise, Joan. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again. Thanks for being an inspiration to everyone. Thanks to everyone for listening today. I am grateful for this opportunity to learn with you. I couldn't do this without Chris Hutchinson, who produces the shows. Be sure to listen on Sunday, April 2nd, when I'm joined by Ann Gannon. She's a former pro golfer turned CPA, specializing in the restaurant industry. She has written 2 books. She's working on her 3rd. We'll be talking about how she helped those restaurants through the pandemic and the tools that she created to do it. So make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to You Can Do It Too on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. Follow Your Restaurant Maven on the social media platforms. And if you're looking for help with your restaurant business, go to yourrestaurantmaven.com. Read my blogs and connect with me for coaching and consulting opportunities. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.